Thank you, Jeff. Parliament has started a probe into how the National Treasury disbursed 6 billion shillings to acquire Telkom Kenya a few days to the 2022 general election. A joint sitting of the Committees on Finance and National Planning and that on Communication, Information and Innovation piled pressure on the Controller of Budget, the Solicitor General and Telkom Kenya CEO to explain how the acquisition of the telco's shares from a foreign company was done. Winfrey Owino with that story.
The part they played in the state's acquisition of Telkom Kenya and the alleged unlawful disbursement of 6 billion shillings to a foreign company.
Although the requisition came accompanied with some letters, we still did a lot of due diligence.
This is an important transaction. We are talking about a lot of money.
When it comes to exit or entry of new shareholders, in which case one shareholder is exiting and is looking perhaps to sell to another shareholder, those are the preserve of the shareholders themselves.
The Controller of Budget told the committee that the transaction process was initiated on July 25th by the then PS at the National Treasury. 7 days later, the disbursement had been approved.
We do not receive any feedback on the process of parliamentary approval. And what this means is that for that clause to have been there, it meant that sometimes approval may be granted or denied.
She faults the law for what she terms as an open-ended nature. Dr. Nyakango adds that she approved the disbursement of the 6 billion shillings and asked Treasury to seek Parliament's nod on the same. This was not done.
My office does not receive any further communication that disadvantages my office because I'm not able to follow through. For instance, if there wasn't an inquiry like this, we would not even know.
Even as the MPs raised the issue with lack of the Attorney General's input in the transaction, Dr. Nyakango reiterates that the shares bought by the government belonged to Helios Investment, a UK-based company. She, however, told MPs that the payments were made to Jamhuri Holdings.
Even if that payment was made within the law, then it may have been overpaid because we paid for shares that were not actually held by Jamhuri Holdings.
When Solicitor General's turn came, he said government only bought 56% of the shares and not 60%, hinting at an excessive payment.
We are giving you the current status as it is.
Documents produced in Parliament had indicated that the state got 60% of the shares on top of the initial 40% it owned. Ogeto says the government had 37.9% against the foreign company's 56%.
We have not been involved at all in the transaction, and in view of the fact that we could be held personally responsible for our actions, we would also seek this comfort from the Attorney General.
When put to task, Telkom's CEO distanced himself from the transactions. He said the transactions only involved the shareholders and the government, but not the company itself. The National Treasury had indicated that it acquired a 60% stake in Telkom Kenya from UK-based Helios Investment Partners for 6.09 billion shillings to fully own the telecom. Documents tabled in Parliament show the purchase was one of the strings of expenditures that the Treasury had incurred without the approval of Parliament in the weeks to the inauguration of President William Ruto on September 13th last year. France's Orange bought a majority share in Telkom Kenya when it was privatized in 2007, but then sold its stake to London-based Helios Investment in 2015. Winfrey Owino, KTN News, Nairobi.
Now, priests in the Catholic Church have for over a millennium been celebrating